What's going on, y'all? I'm here. We're facing reality. And tonight I'm going to share some things that most people would not share, not even on their deathbed. But, like I said, I'm here. And I've decided that the author's note in my favorite book, Room to Dance, really speaks to the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I've decided that I will read it at the beginning of every show. When life is difficult, many people feel alone, believing nobody can truly understand their struggles. But in truth, although the story is different for each of us, we all live with and through the same emotional experiences: pain, joy, passion. These feelings are what I consider to be the common bond between human beings. It is my sincere desire that a person reading this book realizes that someone else has felt what they have and that they are not alone. We seem to be going through a time where people are really struggling with the concept of marriage and whether it's necessary or not. And there have always been people who have questioned the validity of being married and having a piece of paper, how they want to call it. But marriage is important. I mean, everything in this country is geared towards the family, towards marriage. It really is. If you really pay attention and sit back, when I got married, the mail that I got, the different incentives and the different uh, coupons and all kinds of stuff, they're tapped into that because family is what is the backbone of any nation. I never really thought of myself as being a wife. And to be honest, the only reason why I really decided that marriage was something that I would do is when I found out that Rock Hudson was gay and that he had AIDS. And when I saw him, when I saw how AIDS ravaged his body, I mean, that was a beautiful man. And that was my aha moment. I decided, you know what? I better get married so I'll know who to kill if I get AIDS. And that's just how it was. And I decided I want to get married. And one night I was in Bennigan's. This was a bar, grill, restaurant, bar, and dance club in Evanston, Illinois. I was living there at the time. And I was about to leave. And this man walked up to me. And when he saw me, he did he did one of them numbers like in the movies. I was like, this nigga like me. I could just see it. His whole body just had a reaction, a visceral reaction upon him laying his eyes on me. And how in the was it Jerry Maguire movie, You Had Me at Hello? He had me the way when he looked at me. That said a lot to me. I knew that I had been on his mind. And even though he had that reaction, he was very nervous. And so instead of approaching me, he walks around the dance floor. The dance floor was in the middle of the floor. And he walked around the dance floor and he walked really fast because I was on my way out. And he followed me all the way because I called a cab. And he followed me all the way to the cab. And I had one leg in and he said, "Are you going home alone?" And I looked at him, I came by myself. And I went on and got in the cab and I left. So, he didn't really, even though I saw all of that and it struck me, you know, I didn't really, hold on to it. And then I saw him again. And Bennigan's was the first dance club that they had in Evanston. Evanston was a dry town for hundreds of years. And when it was one of the first places that opened up and they sold alcohol, so it was extremely popular. So, with that being said, it was hard to find a seat. So if you found a seat, you was lucky. And I found a little table and it only had one other chair next to it. And this guy who I had seen around, he asked me could he sit at the table. And I told him, yeah, I didn't have, a problem with that. So he was sitting at the table, and the man who taught me how to love, who became my husband, he saw me and he did that whole body thing again. And then he walked around the dance floor again. But this time he got the courage to approach me face to face, didn't chase me out the club. And so he went to the man and he said, "Man, do you mind if I dance with this lady?" And the guy was like, I don't care. We hadn't even spoke to each other, didn't say hello or nothing. We were just sitting there. And so, his manner struck me. But being the I don't know what you want to call me, bold, aggressive, assertive, or whatever. I danced with him, and then he asked me, what do you want to drink? And I said I don't drink. So he was like, well, you gotta let me buy you something. I buy you a pop, this. And I'm like, okay, you can buy. You can buy me a Coke. But when he came back towards me, I looked at him and I said, "You're a thug," and he was so shocked. He denied it. He straight up denied it. So we talked, and he told me that he had been down south in Georgia for 4 years and that he had just came back to Evanston. He had recently came back. So I said, oh, okay. So we danced that night, and then I called me a cab and he followed me to the cab again, trying to, no, you can't go home with me. So the next time he saw me, he asked me for my phone number. So I wrote my phone number, but I didn't put my name on it. And he turned around with it. He hadn't looked at it, but when he got out the door, he came back and he said, if you didn't want me to have your phone number, why did you give it to me? I said, I gave you the phone number. He said, yeah, but you didn't put your name on it. So anyway, we played those little games, whatever. So we eventually, he called me. And so the very first time he called me, I said, look, I ain't looking for no fuck buddy. I ain't looking for no boyfriend. I ain't looking for nobody to hang around with. I'm planning on getting married. I ain't even know the man's name. Honest, I really didn't. I just let him know right off the bat. I'm not. You got the wrong one. He said, well, I would at least like you to know your last name first. He said, and then, maybe take you out, whatever. So I said, cool. I said, but I just want you to know where I'm coming from right off the bat. I'm not, so if you looking for something to play with, you might as well just hang up the phone right now. So he just laughed and laughed, he just thought that was so funny. But I was serious as a heart attack because, that's just where I was and that's just who I am. So we dated. He would come and pick me up from work every day. Sometimes he would have flowers and candy. And one of the first times I met him in the summertime, and my daughter would go to East St. Louis every summer and stay for 3 months. So I met him like in May or something, at the end of May, and then school got out, and so we just spent the whole summer going to the beach and just really getting to know each other. So my daughter always joke about that I only went with him because he bought some Kentucky Fried Chicken. The first night that he came to meet her, he went and got chicken. I didn't ask him for it, but I'm sure he figured out I like chicken. So she said that's the only reason why I married him, because he brought me some chicken. But anyway, so we were dating, or if that's what you want. Yeah, we did, because he was the first person I ever went on an official date with. And we was dating and going out, of course, going dancing. I love to go dancing and stuff. And so um 6 months had passed, and one night my cousin Sharon and her boyfriend Marty came over. And I'm like, okay, you know, all right. So he ended up coming over maybe like 15 minutes after they came. And so we all sat around and talked and stuff. And then they got up and left. But I don't know. I guess they were coming to tell me what he ended up telling me, which was that he wasn't down south in Atlanta. He was down south, southern Illinois in Menard for 4 years. And by that time, I just said, just don't tell me that you done murdered somebody or raped somebody. I can't deal with no murderer or no rapist. And he was like, no, that's not, you know, what I went to jail for and prison for. So he told me, his misbehavings. He was a true miscreant. And by that time, I was smitten, I must admit, because he was just so romantic, I guess. I guess that's what people would call it. He definitely romance. We play my Pioneer. You come over every night after work and we play my albums and slow dance and hug and kiss. And, I was just in bliss, y'all, for real. And just the hugging part. Um, I did the 90 days before Steve Harvey even started talking about it. We didn't have any kind of penetration intimacy um, for 3 or 4 months. My cousin that lived with me, she had the nerve to come and tell me, when you gonna have sex with him? I was like, I'll be damn, she listening to see if I'm having sex with this man. This is crazy. Who does that? But, I just wanted to see, what it was about. And he did his little test on me. He brought me $600 one day and had it in a paper bag and told me he wanted me to hold it for him. I took it and put it in my closet. I ain't thought about it. So 5 months later, he come back, asked for that bag. I gave him the bag. The whole 600 was there. He was like, it ain't even a dollar missing. I'm like, it ain't my money. That's not who I am. You asked me to hold it for you. I held it for you. There you go. So, that was interesting too. Um, and this was before we got married. We dated and lived together for 4 years before we got married. And then, as it started to maybe like a year into the relationship, people start being who they really are. And I started to see some things. That thug that I had saw right off the bat, he started to reveal that side of him. He couldn't hold alcohol, and it turns out because he was a severe diabetic, so he wanted to drink, but he really couldn't. And when he did, it really made him sick. So, he basically tried to stick to beer, but he never finished the whole beer. I bet you the whole 30 years we was together, he didn't never finish a whole beer. But his weed, that's a different story. So the way that gender role, the bad side of the gender roles affected my marriage was he felt like he could have his way, his cake, I should say, and eat it too. And he grew up in a situation where the man was the dominant one in the relationship. And I grew up where the woman was the dominant one in the relationship, or at least in control of herself. That my father wasn't controlling nothing when it came to my mother, her mouth, or nothing else. She did what she wanted to do. And that's what I saw. And it was not necessarily a good thing, um, because it's supposed to be more compromise and submission on a certain level, for it to really be a fruitful relationship. I truly believe that. But we struggled that first 5 years. That first 5 years was rough. We did experience, I did experience some domestic violence early. The first time he, it was time for him to get up to go to work, but he had, hung out and did whatever he wanted to do all night. No, you got a job, you got to get up, you got to go. You take a shower, wash that shit off, do whatever you got to do, but you got to get up out this bed. So we didn't have a car. He rode his bike to work. So he just kept laying there, and it kept getting, closer and closer to time to go. So I got up, I took the bike and I threw it in the bedroom. Get your ass up. And he jumped up out the bed and jumped and put his hands around my neck. And I'm like, you got me messed up. So I ran to the kitchen and I got a knife. And he was like, you gonna try to kill me? I'm like, you trying to kill me? What you talking about? You think choking is not trying to kill somebody? And he looked at me like, this is not me. He started saying, this is not me. This is not me. So didn't know, he hadn't told me the full story yet of his family dynamics and growing up. And once he did, um, the next time that happened, I had the presence of this time I had just said something that I had crossed a line. I don't even remember what I said. The next thing I know, he ready to jump. I'm like, what is wrong with you? You don't just say what you want to say. Excuse me. Yes, I do say what I want to say. You can tell me that you have a problem with what I said, but you are not going to be putting your hands on me. So what I did was, while he was in this haze, I started calling out his father's name. And I just kept saying it over and over and over. And he finally just like caught himself. And then he went and laid on the couch and got in the fetal position. And I'm like, man, this is really deep. This is not just somebody acting out violently. This is a trigger thing. This took him way back. And after that, he really started to pay attention. And so what he would start doing is, when I would say things that he didn't want to hear, he would walk away because he didn't want to be that person. He that's not who he wanted to be in the relationship. And I garnered some respect for him, that he was able to have a presence of mind that that's not who he wanted to be, and harming me is not what he wanted to do. And he had to come to a understanding and a realization that just because you're a man and you're stronger, you don't get to shut me up physically. You can walk out of the room, or you can ask me not to talk to you the way that I talk to you, or we can sit down. You could try to, back then I was irrational. My emotions was all over the place. And I did talk to him really, really bad. And that's something that I had to learn, that was completely disrespectful, no matter how angry I was, no matter what he did, some of the things that I said to him, and then I used his past against him. It was just, I was awful. I was an awful person to him, um, for far too long. For far too long. Some other things that impacted our relationship and that really sort of cemented it was that When he was 12 years old, he had gotten in trouble. And this young prosecutor, it was his first case, and he appealed to the jury that that he would be a menace to society for the rest of his life and that he should be locked up. Um, and they found him guilty and they locked him up. So fast forward to a job that I had. It was Advanced Reproductions, a printing company. Um, I worked right next door to the police station, right there on Elmwood. And a man came in one day to get some copies. And he saw that my name was Wanda Hall. And he said, can I ask you a personal question? He said, I see your last name is Hall. He said, you by any chance wouldn't be uh, Jerome Hall's sister, would you? And so I said, no, I'm his wife. And the look that came over his face, he just smiled so big and he said, I'm his first probation officer. And he said, I always wondered what happened to him. And I'm just so glad to know that he found someone, to love and care for him. And I'm so glad to meet you. And I was just really, I mean, he was just really enamored, but it struck me, that stuff that seems random, there's no randomness, there's things are meant to happen and they fall into place. What are the odds of me actually meeting his first probation officer and this person who felt like that he saw something worthy in him and that he had hoped for that he would find someone to love or understand and care about him. Then the second job that I had was at a publishing company, and a man came in and he had written a book about the Civil War. And I went home and I was telling him about this man and that he was a prominent, used to ex prosecutor in Chicago. And he said, what was his name? And I told him his name, and it turned out to be the man who prosecuted him and sent him to prison. Come on now. I'm like, all right, God, what you trying to tell me? I started to pay attention. So I'm saying that to say that when he would do things that were detrimental to him, um, I started to see that I was in his life for a reason. And he would say that all the time. You're my conscience. If it wasn't for you, I probably wouldn't be alive. And what he was saying to me is that my love for him and my care for him made him think differently of himself. Now I get back to I went all the way around there to get back to how the gender roles. So once he started feeling better about himself, because I was his first girlfriend. I was his first girlfriend because he was out there in the streets. He was into doing his little mischievous and thievery or whatever it was that he was doing. He went into women. But when he introduced me to women who had been interested in, all of a sudden now they were interested in him. And so he always wanted to be a player. So it it's strange how, and it's true, don't nobody want you to somebody else till they see somebody else want you. But he was so needy. He had missed out on so much of what he needed in his formative years that if a woman could say, "Oh, you look nice today," or smile at him, or whatever, and he took that to heart. Whether he said something to her or not, it started to make him believe that he could play. We were together for 4 years before we got married. So, I'm of mine. If you single, you single. And so, he did what he played, and he did what he did. Um, but a part of him really felt like, because he was a man, that it was okay. And he and society boosts that. Society says the same thing. Boys will be boys. You got to sow your oats, and a man got to do what a man got to do, and all of that. He thought that, because he's heard all of that, and he saw that, in the men that were around him, and men that was outside of his family, and then you could see it on TV, and you could hear it in the music. Men are given that leeway to be able to try to compartmentalize their lives, that, I could have this wife, and I can go to the strip club, and, or I can have a girlfriend, because, I don't love her. I'm not feeding her, but I can play with her. And it wasn't just women, it was him just wanting to do whatever it is that he wanted to do. He was never at home. He was always turning corners, as he would call it. Just wanted to be out, just wanted to be. And the more we got into deeper into the relationship, the more he wanted that freedom, because the more he started to settle in and settle down, and he felt comfortable, he wanted to be free. He had never lived on his own. Either he was in jail, or living with a sister or a cousin, or somebody. He never had his own place. We got married. When we got married, finally, 2 weeks after we get married, he goes over to one of his friends' house, and they lived on Dempster, in the over the Martin dry cleaning place. And yeah, he had him an apartment, real nice apartment or whatever. He come home and he says he picked a fight. That's what he did, try to pick a fight. And I would always feel that coming. So I was like, what is the problem? What We ain't got to fight about it. Whatever it is, just say it. Well, I'm thinking that I really don't want to be married, and my friend, he just got him an apartment, and he got a spare another bedroom, and he said that he would rent it out to me. So I said, well, when you leaving? So he said, well, he started waiting on me right now, so I helped him pack. He looking at me out the side of my eye the whole time. He just shocked. I ain't trying to hold you. My love is not a vice grip, baby. You got the real one right here. My love is 100% unconditional, married or not. You don't want to be here, you don't have to be here. So he moved out. He moved out. The guy come up to my job, and he said, "Didn't y'all just get married 2 weeks ago?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "But you got it laid out, your component set and all of that." And he always wanted to have his own place, but he just got a room still. He's still living with somebody, but he was enticed by that. He said, "Well, how come I didn't what? If he don't want to be here, he don't have to be here." So he moved out. A week later, I get a buzz at the door. Here he come back. He done come back with all his clothes. I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. And okay. And I know that there's people that's thinking, she crazy. She's a fool. And people have told me that to my face. You know, you can't make a man be where he don't want to be. And you have to accept your role in the situation, and play your role the way that you want to play it. And the way that I wanted to play it, that I wanted him to always know that he was free to do as he pleased. because it wasn't going to change me. It wasn't going to stop me from getting mine. It wasn't going to stop me from doing what I needed to do. It wasn't going to stop me from being the kind of wife that I wanted to be. I was still going to do that no matter what, because that was my choice and that was the choice that I made. And I was of the mind that if I'm not going to leave him, I'm not going to be arguing with you about what you do or what not going to do, you know? Now, the going to jail, calling me up, you know, from the jailhouse, that got old real quick because I'm not sending no money. I ain't putting no money on your books. I ain't coming to see you. None of that. So I did. I would, when he was, you got to go. You got to get better with that. I I don't know what you're doing out here. I don't want you bringing nothing to my house. You know. So I did. I put him out several times. Several times because I did have my limitations on certain things, and it was just certain. I'm not a criminal, and I'm not gonna be your accomplice, and I'm not gonna be your lookout person. I ain't gonna be your alibi. I'm not none of that. That's not going on. I'm not crossing that line. You try to mess with my freedom, I'm gonna stay free. And he just did seem to mind going to jail. I noticed that they just like, okay, well, you go on and do that. And I had put him out so much. He had bought a television. I just got rid of it this year. It's that TV almost 30, was 30 some years old. I just got rid of it last year. He paid like $3,200 for it. It had Bose speakers on it. Man, it was a nice TV. So that's all he owned in his mind, and that's all he would take. So when I would put him out, he would take his TV. So the last time I put him out, I called my girlfriend. I told him I was putting him out, and she said, "I'm taking custody of the TV. The TV ain't did nothing to neither one of y'all. You, I'm taking. If you put him out one more time, I'm taking the TV." So throughout throughout our relationship, it was more of his unlawfulness that really like caused the problem more than anything, because he felt like he was a kleptomaniac. I don't know. All I know is that he would often do things that were unlawful, and I'm just no. And I would try to talk to him, when he would get out, and um, he just had to make some decisions. And then we experienced a period where he was on crack. When I moved to Louisville, Kentucky, I made a friend and I invited her over. And he had got on crack before we moved to Louisville, but when his sister was murdered, he got off of it. When we moved here and I met this friend, I invited her and her husband over for dinner. The husband was a crackhead, and it just started it all over again. So what he did was he left. He moved from Louisville and went back to Evanston. And then when he went back to Evanston, another fateful thing happened. He met a girl who used to live next door to him, whose sister had accused him of sexually abusing her. And when he met the sister told him that she always liked him. I don't know who he was living with, somebody in his family, but that she knew that her sister was lying, that he had done nothing to her, right? So he was relieved in that, because that carried. I mean, I think there was some kind of report play filed and everything in regards to that. And he had always said that he had never done nothing to the girl, but the girl said that he did. So they grown now. We in our 30s. No, we in our 30s. No, we in our 40s. Okay, around there. And so They were from Jamaicans. They were Jamaicans. So the sister asked him to move in with her. So he moves in with her. And I get this call from her. And she says, well, he's here with me now, and I'm gonna take care of him. And I got this together and I got that together. So I said, can I speak with him? So she said, yeah, you can speak with him. So I said, when do women start telling you what to do and taking care of you and all that? When did that happen? I don't know what she's talking about, blah, 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 blah. So I said, well, whatever you want to do, you want to get a divorce, whatever, just let me know. 2 weeks passed, he called me. Can I come home? I said, well, come home. I thought she had you all together and everything was, good. Well, while he was there, he did something he ain't had no business doing. He ended up going to jail. They decided they was gonna put him on house arrest. Simultaneously, this woman's son did something, and he was 16, and the boy was in jail at the same time. As a matter of fact, they was in the same cell, and they was gonna put him on house arrest. The mother chose to let my husband come home to her house and told her son that he couldn't come. And that's what did her in. He called me and said, I can't believe she doing this. I can't have no woman that's gonna put me above their kids. Can I come back? I let him come back. So he came back and he got, cleaned up as far as I know. And we just moved on, you know. For me, I knew that there was something greater than what we were going through. I knew that it was gonna come to an end, you know, but that it wasn't going to be because I was mad at him or uh, because of another woman, I guess not even because he went to jail. It was something there that was greater than both of us, and I recognized that, and he did too. He didn't have as much respect for it as I did, but he still recognized that it was. And it's that what's that movie? Oh man, I can't think of the name of it, but it's Morris Chestnut and Taraji, and it was about the God being that third entity in your marriage. And I started to recognize that it wasn't just about me and him. It was about the dynamics that is created around us having a covenanted marriage. It's not gonna be perfect, and it's my marriage wasn't even nowhere near perfect. But we both got what we needed in terms of having somebody that stuck, you know, that was there. He was there for he was there for me in the ways that I really really needed, that I didn't fully understand until I got them. And that's being supportive of my dreams, being supportive of me as a mother with my children, being supportive of my household, making it possible for me not to have to worry about um, food in the refrigerator. And I didn't have to do that single mother thing. I in the ways that I suffered only because I chose to suffer, because I was not going to leave the marriage because of what I was getting from it. I recognized the woman that I was becoming, the way that I felt about myself, and in the way that he looked at me, the way that he touched me. I it just all fell together all the time. It's hard to explain, and I know it sort of sounds. I don't know what it sounds like, but it is what it is. Had it not been for him, I would not be who I am today. because he showed me that people have problems, you know? People really, really have problems. They have issues that are real, but that don't mean they should just be thrown away. There are no throwaway people. And we all deserve to have somebody like me in their lives who knows how to love unconditionally. They can say, yeah, I see your flaws. I see that you're not perfect. You get on my nerves. You full of shit. But guess what? I I still love you. Most of the time I didn't like him. Still don't. And he dead. But I love being able to share my capacity for love with him because he needed it so bad. And I could see how the love that I shared with him was changing him and shaping him, and making him feel worthy. And unfortunately, um, he didn't know how to reciprocate. He rather take it out there and share what he learned with somebody else. Try it on somebody new. I was that the catalyst for him to be able to draw other people in because I let him in and he let me in. And instead of that drawing him closer to me, he went the other way. And I accepted that, I did. I accepted. I can't say that I didn't because I did. I accepted it. And I don't know if it's being astute or, because to me, I know what I got from having those experiences, no matter how painful they were. I have lived through all of my worst nightmares. I fear nothing. I'm not afraid of anything that comes my way. I know I'm going to find a way to deal with it, to make it through. My marriage taught me that. And the way that he, thought of me as a woman and then differently as his wife, you know, he manipulated himself into believing that it was okay for him to treat me a certain way because I was his wife. I was married to him. So in that way, that's what another negative way that the gender role affected our marriage because to a certain degree, he felt like I was his property. And although that he didn't, go crazy with it, it was just the way that he would say, "You're my wife. You're married to me, and you ain't shit. So what you saying?" That's some. I used to would say that to him, but I stopped saying that. But I had said it enough for him to already know that that's what I was thinking. For real, and I'm your wife, and what does it mean to you? He tried to live off of my accolades, anything that I got the key to the city of Louisville. You know, he had his chest all stuck out like he actually did something. But in a way, he knew that he had. Because when he met me, I was a hermit. All I did was went to work, to the grocery store, and to the TV guide. I used to live by the TV guide. That's how I lived my life. What was coming on? And when I met him, it was a whole new world. It opened me up to possibilities and to things that I had never even thought about. And that stuff is priceless. You're going to have heartaches and hard times and, all of that. But if you don't hold on to the good, or if you don't seek the good, if you don't contribute to the good, then there won't be any good. And we were really good at that. We could be in an argument 15 minutes before we was about to go to the club. But once we left out the house and you would never even know it. And some of our friends who, because he had a friend, he would call and tell why he was, arguing and whatever. And he, we would go out with them and she would say, "Hey, y'all just all lovey dovey." And He just told me that y'all was just in an argument. What am I supposed to do? You know, we could argue anytime. We paid $25 for these tickets. We gonna party tonight. We can resume the argument tomorrow if that's what we want to do. You know, and it's like when I was going through it and I was when I was doing these things, part of me did feel sort of foolish or whatever, but it was a tug at my heart. It was a, a a need to understand, you know, a need to have empathy and compassion for this person. I mean, I really, really did. I felt for him. So, you know, I guess no matter what he did, because I was there. To start to wrap up, fast forward 2008, he became extremely ill. The diabetes had just taken over. From March to April in 2008, he had 4 strokes, 3 of them in front of me. I came home one day and I was smelling something. I was like, baby, I think it's a dead rat or something in the house. So he said, well, I think it might be my toe. He wore socks all the time. Pulled the sock off his foot. The toe came off in the sock. He's been hiding this from me. The diabetes had gotten so bad that he wasn't getting any blood flow to his extremities. And it was almost like it was brand new. All the stuff that I could even possibly think of holding on to or whatever, you know, I went into caretaker mode. I'm going to take care of my husband till death do us part. And that's what I did. And he left here without no legs. He could barely use his arm. He had congestive heart failure, kidney failure, gastroparesis. He was going blind. He could hardly feel it, no feeling in his fingers. He was losing his hearing. It was awful. It was awful, awful. But still, there was still a part of him that still wanted to play that game. So his A1C got up to be 17. His blood sugar 5, 600, blood pressure 400 over 200. Just, I mean, crazy. I worked at night. I would come home and I would fix his meals up until it was time for me to go to sleep. I got his A1C from 17 down to 7. It took me 9 months. When the doctor saw that, she was like, "You need to be teaching a class. You know what you're doing." But he let me, and then but once he started feeling better, he went back to his old ways. Guess what he did? He moved out. And then that's when he just totally went down. He didn't come back up from that. And that's when he lost the legs, he lost his limbs and his, he ended up having to get on dialysis, and he was in one of the little hover around things, and it was just awful. But he wanted to play that role. He still wanted to be in that role. He just couldn't get past that. So, but he finally got his own apartment by himself. He finally got that. And he was so proud. He was so proud. But he only moved a block away. He found the apartment 1 block away from our house. So he would roll down in his hover around and be out in front of the house. He had this signature whistle that he did. You could hear it 3 or 4 blocks away, out in front of the house whistling. What you cook? And I did. My daughter went down there every week, 3 or 4 times a week, and took care of him. My son got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, took him to dialysis. The 3 or 4 days that he had to go, we took care of him. 6 months before he died, 6 months We had been together 30 some years. He says to me, "You are not who I thought you were." Hmm. It took him not to be able to live how he wanted to live, to be almost completely incapacitated, to slow him down enough for him to think of how good he really had it. And then he said to me, "I know I've been loved, but this is the same man that the first time he came to my house, he sat in my house and said, 'If a bitch think I'm gonna love her, she got to be crazy. I don't love nobody but my mama.'" I got up and I opened my door and stood there. And he said, "What you doing?" I said, "You need to leave. Cause this is love. I am love. This is love up in here. You had the wrong address, baby." He looked at me like I was crazy. And it took him 6 months, 30 some years later, and 6 months before he was going to leave this earth, for him to realize what a beautiful, wonderful experience that he was blessed to have. He would tell me all the time, "I prayed for you." And I would say, "But you prayed for me and you get me and then you pray on me. What really?" I just y'all, I'm telling you, I feel so blessed and honored to have been able to have a person in my life, in my presence, that I was able to really show, that they were worthy of love, no matter how wrong or what they did, or they deserve to be loved. And sacrifices we make, we all have to make some sacrifices, but it was well worth it. I would do it again. As hard as it was, and many times as I cried and prayed, "Lord, why me?" But I got the answer, why not? You know what the song say? "How could I let you get away when I knew I'd need somebody soon?" That's why he kept coming back, because he had a girlfriend. Before I go, he just played it all the way out in. Before he lost his legs, right when it was in 2008, and he was really, getting sick. Uh, he came home one day and told me he was leaving. He left again. Oh my God. He came home and packed his clothes up, called him a cab. He had a girlfriend. They won the lottery together, honey. They won almost $30,000. He thought she was his lucky charm. So he packed all this stuff up and he moved out on a Friday. Oh, he made a big old scene in front of the neighbors and stuff. They was all on their porch. I wasn't saying nothing. I just, let him do all his talking. I'm this, I'm that, whatever. No, man, no. Okay, do you should know by now. So the only thing that I did was I just kissed my hand and put it to my butt and sent it to him. "See you gone, boo." That Saturday night, my son come wake me up. "Mom, Dad's on the porch with all his clothes." 1 week, y'all. He left on a Friday. Here it is Saturday night. The woman that wanted him so bad, she found out how sick he was. He had like 10 different medications. And she told him, "I ain't taking care of you. I'm not taking care of you." And he needed somebody to take care of him. That's just how sick he was. But she didn't know what was really, he was able to try to, hold it together when the little time that they spent together. But then when they got to be the real deal, it was a total different story. So that Sunday morning, my phone rang. It's her. And she just running her mouth and talking, about him. And so I said, wait a minute, hold on. I said, why you calling me? I said, you got him. Ain't he there with you? So she says, uh, and part of you the problem. I ain't gonna be taking care of no man. Now this is my husband. You trying to make him be your boyfriend. This is my husband. I said that I would take care of him. You what's wrong with these men today? So I said, look, hold on. I came here and I brought him the phone because she tried to play like he was still there after I said, don't know, ain't he there with you? So that made her think that he wasn't here with me. But this here he was. Well, he was here. He wasn't with me. He was here. So man, she was hot. He got it. He barely made it up out the bed and went to the bathroom, talked to her, whatever. No, he learned the hard way. Everything that he did, he learned the hard way. And he was so much love to still be here on this earth. And we about to be legal too. Oh my God. He told me that back in '84 that he know that we was gonna be legal before we died, but it didn't happen for him. But I'm still here to see it. And I'm happy. And I'm living good, better than I ever have in my whole life. But I did my time. I kept my vows. I was the woman that I wanted to be, no matter what the gender role, no matter what they wasn't, no matter what people say. I made the choice to be the type of woman that I wanted to be in my marriage. And before I go, I want to share with you guys. I wrote, this is part 2 of my book, Get Out of the Way, Claim God's Will for Your Marriage. This is the part 2. I don't have any more part 1s, but my story was so interesting to me that I wrote 2 books about it because I realized that everybody can't do what I did. I didn't think that I could do what I did, you know, but I did it. And I loved him and took care of him until the day he died. The Friday before he died, he wanted fish. I cooked him some fish, you know, and he must have died. They think he died on that Saturday or that Sunday, but uh, it wasn't until Tuesday that I realized that I hadn't heard from him. He hadn't come out and whistled or anything. And so I had my youngest daughter go down to his apartment and he was dead. he was he had his hat on and he had his pipe and his weed between his legs. And he was getting ready to go, he was getting ready to come out. But his heart just gave out on him as he was, I guess, pushing the little thing to get ready to leave. You know, we need to get over who need to do what and get down to loving each other and being there and having compassion and empathy for each other, truly having each other's back, being that ride or die, whatever that means to you. You know, some people don't know how to love. He didn't know how to love. He had no idea. He never loved me, not in the true sense of the word. He loved what I did for him. But me as a person, because he didn't know how. But I'd be damned if he didn't try, if he didn't put forth a college try effort to make me feel like he was infatuated and he adored me, but love, but really loving, he was gonna always come first. He didn't make no sacrifices for me. No, he didn't. He did what he wanted to do, and he always put himself first. But you know, it ain't over till the fat lady sing. And I know exactly where he at. He in there in my living room in the box behind my desk. Sometimes I kick it. You know, No, I have fond thoughts of him. I do. He helped, like I said, shape and make me the woman that I am today, whatever that may be. So I've shared all of this with you guys, and I hope that I'm sure it's people that's gonna listen to it. That I wouldn't have did this, and you don't know what you're gonna do until you get into that situation. I can tell you that right now. I would have said I wouldn't have did none of it either. Okay, and I did it all, plain and simple. Peace.